So here we are then, MotoGP 26 is finally released, and today I am here giving you my first impressions of the game. So without any further ado, let's get straight into it. So here we are in the main menu then, and Pecco looks like he is being interviewed behind the Ducati trucks. I've just gone through the initial setup, so I'm not going to bother showing you all that. I was just setting up my controls and setting the graphic settings and things like that. I skipped the tutorial because, of course, in these videos, I do like to just go straight into to time trial, and I think that's what I'm going to do. If you guys have been watching me for a long time, you know what we do here. We usually go to Sepang as Fabio Quartararo, I think usually, and try out the game and sort of give my initial impressions of the physics. There you can see we've got the new rider rating system there. You can see all the different ratings. We've got lap 90, head-to-head 93, pace 98, relative, I'm guessing that's what that is, 88, and then 90 overall for Fabio Quartararo on the V4 Yamaha. And then obviously if we look in terms of tracks, obviously part of me wants to try Goiânia, because obviously it's a brand new circuit to the, well I say brand new circuit, they'd go there in like the 80s, but in terms of the modern day it's a brand new circuit. But I do like to go to Sepang, obviously it's a track that I know very well. It's got a bit of everything they test there, so I think it's a good one to sort of get a bit of a handle on the physics. So let's head down to the track and see what the game's got in store. So I thought I'd just be quiet there for the first couple of corners so you could hear the new sound, although I can't say I hear a massive difference compared to the previous game, so that's not brilliant. Now, first thing I'm noticing is that the tyres are freezing. Look how cold they are, so I'm sliding around every single corner. Physics-wise, obviously, there is supposed to be quite a big change this year, so what Miles have said is that they have gone towards a rider-based handling rather than the bike. So in the previous games you controlled the bike, now they're trying to say that you're controlling the rider weight a bit more. I'm not going to comment too much on it so far because, like I said, the tyres are freezing, so that's clearly going to have quite a big impact. Obviously the only thing I will say is that the animations look a little bit strange, especially when you sort of go around the corner. The guy's pretty sat up like that, for example. He's virtually bolt upright, which should not be the case. Should not be the case at all. And you could argue that it's potentially me a little bit on the stick there, not quite used to it, but it does look a bit strange, and we turned in a bit too early there. Yeah, so I think when I was leaning in a little bit more, he did get more down. Does seem on the right-handers it's not so bad. Maybe the left-handers are just a bit worse. Oh, I could feel the front going there. So what I decided to do was do a flying start just to get the tyres up to temperature, because I didn't want to give my feedback whilst the tyres were still really cold. Was it a little bit strange that they'd taken so long to get up to temperature, because we had done like almost a lap, so that's worth noting. And I also have changed the brake disc now because my brakes were getting overheated, although they still are. They still are there. You can see how overheated the front brake got there. It's like Martin at Jerez the other week. Right then, so this is going to be our first proper lap with the tyres in the window. Obviously medium hard combination. You know, can't judge that straight away. In previous games, medium front tyre has been pretty bad, so that could very well be the same. Initial impressions are the brakes are certainly not as strong as they've been in previous games, which I'm not quite sure why. I guess maybe that's some kind of way to try and slow down the bikes so they're not as fast, because obviously they are way quicker in the game usually than they are in real life, so maybe that's kind of what they've gone for that one. But yeah, that's two corners basically where I've actually tried to brake deep into them and I've absolutely blown them, so that's my initial takeaway there, is that the brakes do seem a lot weaker. In terms of the rider leaning on the bike, I'm not so sure I can feel that particularly. Maybe it does feel a bit more gradual when you're tipping it into the corner, which again isn't brilliant because it wasn't exactly like rapid before. The tyres are going cold again, so I might actually have to stick some softer tyres in, at least the rear anyway, because it's put hard rear on because obviously it's Malaysia, so you'd expect it to be pretty hot, but it looks like that tyre is also cooling down, which I will say is probably me. Maybe I'll turn the traction control down a step or two just to try and heat that up. I remember when I first played 25, one of my first thoughts was that the ride height device was a lot smoother than in 24, and just trying it there, I'm going to try it out of this corner again as well. It seems even more smooth in this game, so that's good in a way, that it's not so aggressive, because obviously in real life they are very refined now, the ride height devices. When they first came in, yeah, they were probably a bit rough, especially some of the non-Ducati manufacturers when they first brought theirs in were a bit more rushed and definitely not as good. Obviously, this is the last year that we'll have the ride height device, which is also good in one way. But hey, at least they've maybe kind of finally mastered it on the last attempt. Whether it actually gains you time or not, again, still remains to be seen, because I know in the previous games it's been a bit hit and miss with that. Now, since I've kind of mentally checked that the brakes are not as good, I am making the corners a bit more, so that is obviously an improvement. I guess in terms of the brakes, people had issues with the stoppies. I didn't really have a massive problem with that ever, even 20, where it was considered really bad. Like, you played the game for like half an hour, you just started to brake around it, like it wasn't a huge problem for me. But what I might do is at the next big braking zone, I'm going to absolutely ram on the brake and see if I can cause the bike to stoppy, because that might confirm the theory that that's kind of what they've done, to try and make it a bit easier. We are on Pro Physics, by the way, kind of goes without saying, but yeah, just to confirm that. I'm sure you can tell, because the arcade physics, you are just ridiculously fast. Right, 100% brake pressure. Yeah, barely stoppies at all. So I think that's probably what they've done, is they've reduced the brake pressure to brake performance, to say, to stop the bike stopping so much. Can't say I had a huge issue with that, but that was a complaint of a lot of players, and effectively you have got to go with the majority. So seems reasonable enough to me. It doesn't feel bad so far, though. Don't get me wrong, I know like I've kind of been a little bit critical of a couple of things. It doesn't, you know, I'm not crashing at every corner, which was definitely a thing in, what, like 23 maybe? Like where they had that front end issue where the front would just get pushed constantly by the rear. But I think what I'll do now is I will do a few push laps, and I'll come back with a bit more detailed feedback off the back of that. Okay, so I finally did a somewhat decent lap. It wasn't my fastest, you can see. I actually did a 57.0 was my fastest. So I was actually about half a second off that, but it looked cleaner in terms of the corners, so I thought I'd be a better one to kind of demonstrate the game. But yeah, obviously as you can see, 16 laps in, so I've got quite a bit of thoughts so far. I mean, first of all, look at my rear tyre. Obviously, for one, you'll notice that I'm now on a medium rather than a hard. That was something I changed, but look at how cold it is. So rear temperature is just bugged straight up. I know I'm on a high traction control setting, but I was playing about with the traction control settings, and that's why I ended up on 5 again. Just playing about with different ones. The only way I found to actually get some temperature in your tyre was to actually just do a burnout, and then it would you could kind of then keep that temperature just about. But if it got cold at all, you could not bring the temperature back. You see, there you go, I've got it up to green, and if I do a couple of corners, it is kind of staying up to it. But I think the problem is on the straights, you lose a lot of temperature. The bikes do feel a bit slow on corner exit to me. So like in the lower end of the rev range, you don't feel like you've got much power, which again may well be some sort of assist to try and help people. But out the last corner at this track in particular, you feel very slow. You feel like you're really not getting much power down at all. So that's obviously probably one of the main takeaways. Yeah, there's definitely something a bit weird with the rear tyre. You can see, like I basically demonstrated, if you do a burnout, you can then keep the temperature. But I mean, I'd just done a push lap and it was blue. Like, that shouldn't really be the case. Here's another point, is the brakes. You can see I've completely run on there. They are very strange. They are difficult to get your head around because they're pretty weak. Obviously, earlier in the video, I pushed the front end. I basically tried to do a stoppie to test the pressure, and found that you could really slam on the brakes, which you can. You can really slam the brakes. If I slam the brake on into turn 1, you still got 100% brake pressure. You can really put the brakes on. But to actually go fast and try and brake deep, the bike is snapping, and the rear will snap and then the front will push, which is somewhat realistic, but it is a little bit frustrating when you know that you should be able to brake that deep, but the brakes just don't allow it because they're just not as strong as in the previous games. So for me, obviously I've done many laps of this track over many years, so like you've got your braking markers pretty much dialed in. It's pretty difficult to undo that and stop yourself running wide. The weight of the rider, you definitely do feel it once you start to do a few laps. I noticed that initial turn-in is a little bit understeery, but as you go through the corner and he's gone over more, the bike starts to come back. I was cutting that corner there quite a bit, the right-hander, the second of the two. So there is actually one more thing that I want to test, because now that I'm speaking about the turning, there is one corner in particular that we need to test. So I think everyone could see this one coming here, the Taro VIP at Portimão. Now this is a corner where the bike has not turned for many years, and it still doesn't. Okay, let's go back and do that again. So I hit the apex. I mean, to be fair, it's probably the wrong way to take the corner. You probably only want to hit the middle. But I've braked so early here as well. Yeah, it's still an assist through the corner. Yeah, unfortunately, hasn't passed that test. So in terms of the rider leaning over, you're going to have that problem there at Catalonia turn 10. I think there's a few other corners in the calendar, but those are the two most egregious ones. I guess also even the Sepang last corner is going to be slightly affected, and Sepang turn 1, but they are a little bit more longer corners, so they give you a bit more time to actually get it to turn eventually. But I've decided to come back to the main menu now to just give off my final thoughts then from this initial first impression. So I don't want to repeat myself too much, so just kind of summarise what I've said so far. Obviously the brakes, very weak. That's something that's going to take a lot of getting used to. Into corners, you are going to have to use the full travel of the brake. You are going to have to go 100% brake, and you're going to have to just kind of hope that the front sticks. Again, like I said, you can push it. It is quite a strong front end. It's just quite vague, so you will just sometimes crash and not really... I say not really know why, like you do know why, because you're taking the Mickey Mouse, shall we say. But like there was no warning sign, you just kind of crashed. Sometimes it does like to snap into the corner. Again, that's a decent warning, like you should probably pick up the bike, things like that. So that I don't have a problem with. Rear tyre temperature does seem to be somewhat of an issue, at least for me, in that particular session. Didn't seem quite as bad at Portimão on the soft tyre, but medium and hard definitely did seem like it was hard to build temperature in them. It's easier to keep the temperature in the tyre, but to actually build it is very difficult. The turning, you can feel it's different, at least I can, compared to MotoGP 25, so they definitely are telling the truth with this rider leaning stuff. And like I said, it does seem like initially it's a bit more, well, not more understeery, but still pretty understeery into the corner. It does start to turn in more as you go through it, but it does seem like those really tight hairpin corners where you're kind of on the limit. I kind of would have called the milestone limit, because there's clearly some sort of hard limit where they don't let you turn any further or lean any further than that. That still seems to be a problem. Obviously, it's a case of mitigating it in the corner, so maybe apexing a little bit later than I was at Portimão, but I just kind of wanted to show, will it actually kind of track around the corner, and it does just kind of run out wide. Building on that point of the rider weight, obviously the new animations that come alongside that, they do seem a little bit off. Again, I think they're more fluid in terms of the actual rider's body movement when the animation does take effect, especially the ones kind of sat over the seat. I have seen people do that in real life. I think Toprak is one of the riders that particularly does that quite a lot. At least he did in his Superbike days anyway. Obviously, he's changed his style a little bit coming to MotoGP. But then when you're actually in the corner, the rider is very sat up. On the straights, they're not even tucked in that much. So yeah, you've got those like little bits there. And then also the ride-out device was even smoother than last year, which was already very smooth in comparison. So maybe they've got that slightly right. I did notice that it didn't go down very low though, which was a complaint of people last year. So I do genuinely think that must be some sort of reason. There must be a reason for that. I think it probably upsets the bike too much when it drops too low. And I think that's why it was really aggressive in 24 and was it in 23? I think it was. So those two games it was really aggressive, whereas 25 was a little bit less so, and even less so now on 26. It does seem a little bit less aggressive, and I guess that's maybe because it doesn't drop as low, but obviously isn't as realistic. Acceleration out of corners does seem a bit slow, especially in the lower RPM. You just feel like you're not going anywhere, and then all of a sudden you're kind of going up to speed, which I guess throws you off even more, because I think then approaching the corner, you think you're probably going slower, so you try and push harder into the corner, and as we've established, the bike certainly doesn't want to pull up as much as it did in the previous games. But yeah, I think that's about it really from my first impression. So a good bit to digest there. Definitely some changes from 25. It's not a copy paste, I wouldn't say. Doesn't feel like the same bike to me underneath. When I come on these games, I'm focusing more on the physics. I'll probably do a couple of races with the AI later on today as well to try to test those out. But for my first initial thoughts of the game, I'm interested in how the bike handles more than anything. But I'd be interested to hear what you guys think in the comments below, if any of you have played the game yet, especially those that didn't like 25 and prefer 24. I quite liked 25 personally. I thought it was a step from 24, so they were building. They do seem to have obviously gone in a little bit of a different direction for this one. Probably too early to tell if it's good or bad. I think it will frustrate some people, because that front end vagueness in particular, because you have to push the front end to get it to stop, you are inevitably going to just have some crashes that you don't really know why you've crashed, because yes, you're pushing the front end, but you had no warning signs. You just went down. So that's at least what I think. So yeah, obviously, like I said, if you have played the game, do let me know in the comments below. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed that one. If you are new to the channel, please do like the video and subscribe, because it really does help me out. And of course, it is a win-win for both of us. You should get some more MotoGP 26 game content in your subscription feed. So like I said, of course, there is going to be quite a bit of content coming out over the next few weeks on this game, obviously as it is in its early stages, so do stay tuned for that. But I hope you do enjoy the rest of your day, and I shall see you in the next one.